You're listening to the Money Dad Podcast, practical financial and business conversation from a dad who knows money. I'm April Adams, and please welcome my dad, the Money Dad, Robert Adams. Well, here's the problem of the day. And I'm afraid if you're single like me, you're going to have more problems in what we're going to talk about.
How can you have more problems being single?
Well, here's the thing. If you are a two-income family and one person loses an income, you at least have one income. But if you're a one-income person and you lose that income, you have zero incomes.
Duly noted.
So that's where you might not have to deal with other things, but sometimes there is a little bit of a safety net with having a partner. But still, usually if you have a partner, you probably have some kids or other things, extra mouths to feed, so to speak. So there's still a moment to panic. So we wanted to talk today about what do you do when one person loses their income?
Well, the first thing to do is pray.
Yeah.
Pray that you can get out of this situation and that God will give you the guidance to get out of that situation. But some practical things I've looked up, made some notes on that we can share. The first thing is if you are fired from your job, a lot of times people say, well, you can go draw unemployment. Well, unfortunately, if you are fired from your job, you don't have too big a chance of unemployment in the state of South Carolina because it's called a right-to-work state. So all that means is somebody can tell you that you've been dismissed and you've done a great job, thank you for your time, but that's all they have to say. But if you have worked somewhere a long time and something just happened and they said, you know, we need to let you go, then for those people that haven't experienced this yet, then ask your employer, will they lay you off? If they lay you off, then you do qualify for unemployment. So that would be the place to start. And when all these things happen, obviously there's a lot of emotions, and naturally so, because if you've worked somewhere a long time, you've dedicated yourself to it, all of a sudden you get fired or laid off. It's a very emotional time, but some of these things that we're going to say, think about them and keep them in the back of your head in case that does happen. Even if you're single, or even if you have two people working in the home. And sometimes, and I've done this many times with a couple businesses I work with, regardless of how people have been, I've always gone back and looked and said, okay, Johnny has two kids over here and a wife. Wife's working hard, but Johnny can't come back to work because the client just does not want Johnny on the job. Johnny made that choice, unfortunately, and put his employer in a bad situation to let him go. So I have actually practiced that where I said, okay, Johnny, we're going to lay you off because you need unemployment. Even though it may cost the company, it's not going to cost us that much to allow you to be unemployed. The other thing is we're going to give you 4 weeks pay. Now, if somebody says they're going to give you 4 weeks pay, keep this in the back of your mind. You don't want that pay 4 weeks over time. You want that pay right away and get off 4 weeks at one time and set your termination date. Because when you go to apply for unemployment, then you have to wait a week before your unemployment starts. It's like a week in the hole. So if you get your 4 weeks of severance, then wait a week, then you'll start drawing unemployment on the second week after you've been terminated. So it gives you like another 3-week head start that you're getting on top of your severance. So if any of those things ever come up, keep those in mind, that you can maybe contain your emotions after you kind of let it out or something and go back and, speak to your employer about that.
Sounds like you're a nice employer. People might want to go work for you and just get laid off.
Well, April, I will have to say that I've been in the position of authority, and even though sometimes people really deserve it, I've always tried to look at their family situation and say, what if that were me?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times we want to get back at people. We want to try to make their life as bad as it can be, and sometimes we're even in authority that we can make their life as bad as it can be. But at the end of the day, is that really what you want to do?
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you have a successful company and you're able to overcome things. And a lot of times I've learned in life, you don't really give people what they deserve sometimes. You show a little bit of mercy. I think there was a saying one time where back in the olden days, back in the 1600s, this lady's son had actually killed somebody, and he was being held in prison, and he was about to be hung for his crime. And the mother went to the king and said, "King, please release my son, please. It would mean so much to me." And the king looked at this lady and said, "Why would I want to release your son? He murdered this person. And this person is dead, obviously, because he murdered them. Why would I want to let him go? Do you not want to see justice?" And the lady said, "King, I would love to see justice. But today I'm not asking for justice. I am asking for mercy." Sometimes we have to show a little mercy, because we never know when we might want some mercy instead of that justice.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're an employer out there, just realize sometimes it's not going to cost you that much to show some people some mercy, especially if they are in a bad family situation with a couple kids. But that's where people have to test their conscience. Another thing to think about when things happen is health insurance. If you got health insurance with your company, then you have a couple choices. If you have another spouse working, you can try to get on their policy, and that can happen because of a life event change. But if you're single, you only really have one choice, and that is to accept COBRA. And all COBRA means is that you're going to pay for the insurance yourself for what the real cost of the insurance was, but you are at least allowed to have the coverage. And then there are other options out there too you can look for that might be a little bit cheaper. Ask your employer too about payouts and severance, or do you have any sick time? Do you have any vacation time? Do you have any whatever time that's in your employee handbook that you're entitled to that you can get added to any kind of pay at the end? But once you get through that emotional part and you're home, now you really have to make some hard decisions. In our first couple podcasts, we talked about starting an emergency fund, being able to establish an emergency fund. And if anybody out there are listening to these regularly, then do start that, because you never know when you're going to lose your job or if your spouse is going to lose theirs. And sometimes it's no fault of their own. It's just circumstances in the economy, circumstances with whatever business is being run.
Yeah, I mean, things are pretty unstable right now.
Oh, absolutely. And don't think that it can't happen to you. So one of the things I've heard people use is create a crisis budget. But those are the things that we talked about earlier, is when you don't have money and you're trying to get by, then you have totally got to focus on your needs and not on your wants. You got to make sure you got your house paid for. You got to make sure you got your utilities, food, all those non-essential things. You got to make sure you focus on them.
Essential things, right?
Essential.
Not
Essential.
non-essential. Essential.
Essential. Thank you, April. I love it when you help me.
Well, if I'm going to go crazy on my non-essentials, let me tell you.
Yeah. Well, and that's true, because now you're in a habit of doing certain things because you're used to your income, or you're used to two people's income, and now you don't have it. I want to say this, it's not being ugly, but it's really, you got to grab hold of yourself. You cannot wish yourself out of this hard time. You would like to wish yourself out of it, but you cannot wish yourself out of this hard time. You have to focus. You have to try to work through the emotions, because if you don't, it will get worse and worse. First thing you want to do too, if it's a single person or married, go to your creditors. Go to the bank. Tell them what your situation is. Don't be ashamed to tell them, because at the end of the day, you're trying to keep your house, but you may not be able to afford those payments. And so many times banks will work with you. They may allow you to skip a couple payments for 5 or 6 months, but they'll still charge interest, but that's okay. Or you may say, if you can let me skip 6 months worth of payments, I'll pay the interest. So don't be scared to talk to them. And then there's a lot of hardship programs out there that you can go talk to people about. Look things up online, like state housing. If you got a government house loan like HUD, go look up all these things that you can talk to your creditors about and get them to work with you during this hard time, especially if you have a real banking institution, not like some loan shark company like blank and blank finance or whatever. You know, those people, if you ever went there, they can't work with you at all, because they're already charging you 36 to 72% interest.
Just try not to get involved there.
That's exactly right. And there's some things, I forgot what podcast, because we're starting to do a couple of these now, but when we were talking about credit, how to establish credit with a real institution so you wouldn't have to go to those type of banks. The first thing everybody wants to do, though, if they work somewhere a while, they want to tap into that 401k. And that's why I brought up these other things first. Try to do all these other things so you don't have to tap into the 401k. If you are under 59 and a half and you tap into that, the first thing you're going to do is pay a 10% penalty. So if you had to go get $5,000, then right away $500 is coming off, so now you're down to $4,500. But the bad thing is, when it comes tax time, you're going to pay income taxes, federal and state, on the $5,000, not the $4,500. So, and you're going to lose, your investment over time and so forth. If you have to go there, go there. But that is your last resort. That's where you are before you just let go. The other thing is, try to support each other if you're married. If your husband loses his job, or even if you lose your job, it's devastating. It's a real emotional time. Don't just start out when they come home, say, hey, you got to go out there tomorrow and look for something. Each of you know that. You got to do what it takes, and you do need to get over these emotions quick, but sometimes it's just like a death. Whenever there's a death, people show up to love on people, to give them support, and then after a while, it's time to move on.
You got to grieve.
You have to grieve. Thank you. That was the word I was looking for. So thank you for that. Talk to your spouse and just ask them, hey, how can I help you? Let's see what else. I wrote down something here. Oh yeah, with networks, don't be scared to reach out to the other spouse's networks to see. Sometimes people, I don't want so-and-so to know I lost my job. No, get all your pride out of the way. Right now, you have to go find one.
Yeah, it could be your church. Maybe if you're in a pottery class, anybody, put it out there.
Anything.
Yeah.
Now, here comes the
Your
cold.
community.
Here comes the cold statement, April, because I grew up during a different era, and when I was 18, I lived it. I had to support 5 people. I was scared to death. So what do you think I did in my 24-hour period? I worked 14 to 16 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're saying I can't make it off $15 an hour, then go work 2 $15 an hour jobs and you will make $30 an hour for that period of time during that quote day. That still gives you about 6 hours to sleep by the time you drive home, take a bath and go to bed and get up and do it again. Is it hard? Absolutely. But will it give you an opportunity to be able to get out of the situation you're in? Absolutely. So that's where it just takes that intestinal strength to be able to go out and do all those things. And if you can't do those things or just say, I can't put myself up to it, then find some kind of part-time gig. Do something to bring in enough money that you can buy some groceries, and don't abandon your job search. So there's all kind of ways there. Then, like I said, for homeowners, I was talking about, let's see my note right here. It says talk to your bank, disclose your hardship, talk about loan modifications, mortgage assistance, and then the state assistance. Don't overlook things like that. If you faced eviction, look for legal aid through the HUD Eviction Protection Grant Program. There's one of those out there. If you're about to be evicted, even though you're so emotional, try to contain those emotions, to think about some of these things to go look for. Immediately stop automatic bill payments like drafts that come out of your accounts, because you do not want your bank account being hit all the time, that now your overdraft is a $30 charge for everyone. One of the things that when I was taking over my sister's finances, she would have a $15 charge, but because she was overdrafted and didn't know it, she now had another $30 charge for that $15 charge. Then she went and bought a Coke at McDonald's for $2.69, and she had another $30 charge. So the Coke ended up costing her $32.69.
That's still expensive, even in today's economy.
Yeah, amen, girl. But, be careful to look, for things like that. Forbearance loans, that just means postponing your getting temporary relief.
So forbearance, when you say forbearance, that means
it's a temporary relief agreement, where your bank pauses your payments or reduces your payments due to your hardship, and it applies to all your mortgages, your car payments, and all that stuff. But while payments stop, though, that interest is going to continue to accrue, because the bank's still going to get paid. But they will work with you. It's not the end of the world. But the things that you really need to go back and listen to, if you get in this situation, is go back and listen to these first couple podcasts, because the first one that we spoke about was really how to get into the right mindset. how to focus on what you needed to do. Because if you don't fight your way out of the funk, it's really going to get so much worse, and it will come crashing down on you. It's one thing to think it's going to come crashing down on you, but when it does, it is really, really overwhelming. Sometimes people will say, well, I know exactly how you feel. No, they don't, because they've never been in that situation. But as we speak to y'all today, I can tell you I know exactly how you feel, because I have been in that situation, and the things that I've learned through those situations is if you don't get yourself together and you don't fight through it, then you will not survive. I will say it again. You cannot wish your way out of it. You have to work your way out of it. Whenever, back in the earlier podcasts, when your grandfather had that heart attack and your grandmother couldn't work, he looked at me and he says, you know your mama can't work. Now, if you're 18 or older, imagine how that felt at 18 years graduated from high school. It was pretty overwhelming.
Yeah.
It was pretty emotional. It was pretty like I didn't know I just got 1,000 pounds put on my back. And at the time, I didn't know how to do anything but get up, go have a good time all day long, stay out all night, and get up and do it again and make enough money to support my life. So there was a lot of things that were overwhelming that I had to overcome, but I never would have overcome those if I had not focused and made a conscious effort and be intentional about what I needed to do. So if you're in this situation, work with your spouse, be intentional about what you're going to do. If you're single, you have the opportunity with no children. Well, you may hopefully. If you do have children, emotionally, I will say it is so much harder. I've seen people I know that have had children, their husbands left them with the children, and believe it or not, didn't want to pay any child support. Can you believe that, April?
Those are some pretty crappy people.
Well, there's a lot of crappy people out there. And I can hear all those women with children now saying, amen, brother. But unfortunately that happens. And the lady is stuck with trying to support everybody. That's when you need people to lean on. Don't be ashamed to try to lean on your family. If somebody comes to you and says, if you ever need any help, please let me know. Well, I learned something over those years, April. I took them up on that. I would go back to them and say, hey, you remember that time you told me that if I need some help, let you know? Well, I'm letting you know.
Yeah.
But, and try not to abuse their help, but try to use their help to help you get through situations. And
yeah, I think that's the point before we close, going back to whenever things like this happen, it's a shock to our system and it can be very emotional, but being able to stop and evaluate the resources that you actually have, and to not be the type of person who with every solution goes, well, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. That's not going to work. This is not a time for that's not going to work. It's a time for let's try and see. But people can be resources. You can look into, again, what do you have saved? What do you have in retirement? What communities are you a part of? What are the resources that your town, your city, even federal government, what are the things out there that can help you? Because you might be surprised to see that you might have more than you think that you do.
Well, one thing you definitely want to do is if you go to friends or go to family and ask for help, whether it be some financial help, whether it be help with children, make sure you display to your family and your friends that you are doing everything that you possibly can to make the best of your time and the best of what you're making. When you do that and you display that, people will want to help you.
Yeah.
But I have had relatives and friends that would want the loans, want the money, and never change their lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
They never made the effort to do anything different. Then they would come back to me, I need money for my electric bill. Can you help me? And I finally had to learn to say, no, I can't, because you're not helping yourself.
Yeah, it's infuriating to help somebody and then you find out they're driving a nicer car than you, or the person you helped has a nicer phone, or they,
The unfortunate thing during hard times is nobody wants to change.
Mm-hmm.
You have to make a conscious effort. You have to be intentional about changing. I think I've said that a couple times now. Life is intentional. You have to make, see how to say this, April. I got to be nice. I'll use what I told you earlier. There's a saying out there. If you always do what you've always done, you will always get what you always got. Now, sometimes that could be good, but some people say, my life's been so hard. It just never seems to change. The same old keeps happening. I just don't understand why. That's because you haven't done anything to change it. Mm-hmm. You keep doing the same old thing, so you'll always get what you always got. When I said, I think in the first podcast, and I'm being sarcastic because I wore it out, change the way you think, you've got to change the way you think and be intentional about it. If not, it'll bury you. Can't wish your way out of it. You got to work your way out of it, and work is a very strong word.
Thanks for listening to the Money Dad Podcast. Head on over to our website, themoneydadpodcast.com, for more resources and to send in any questions that you might have. Do your homework, and we'll see you next time.